New color mapping features in particle illusion give you more creative options and also allow for more natural looking particle simulations. Let's take a quick look. So starting with a sphere emitter, you can see I've got shape set to sphere, and I've got one particle node, and the color type by default is set to full gradient. So there's my gradient above, and it's mapped from yellow to black at the end, or very dark blue. And full gradient basically means that the particles are born with the start color yellow, and through their life, they change color until they reach the end color. And by the end of it, it's pretty random. If we choose random gradient, well, that's very random because the particles are born choosing a specific color or a random color from the gradient. So both are fairly random. In color type, there are two new options, map to emitter and map to world. So let's start with map to emitter. All right, so the gradient mapping type is set to angular. You can see on our sphere, we start at yellow, and then the colors are mapped 360 degrees around the sphere until they get back to that dark blue. There's also a linear option, and you can see once again starting from yellow on the left and finishing at dark blue on the right. And there's a radial option, and you can see that the particles are starting from yellow in the center out to dark blue at the edge. Now, if we have a look in the top view here, see how the gradient is mapped on the outside of the sphere? If you wanted to have the gradient mapped from inside, from the middle, change the shape to box. And if we take a look from world view, you can see that the particles are actually yellow, starting from the middle or the center of the shape, and they're changing to the dark blue color towards the outside of the shape. I'm going to change that back to render view, and I'm going to change this back to sphere. So next I'm going to turn on the HUD, and I'm just going to move this. Remember, it's set to map to emitter. And that means if I move the emitter, then the gradient moves with the emitter. Okay? Let's change this back to angular. And I'm going to just move it again and see how the gradient moves with the emitter. But if I change this now to map to world, at first it really looks no different. But if we click and drag this now, see how the color of the particles looks different? This is a little clearer if we change this to linear. Okay, so remember particles starting from yellow and going to a dark blue. So if I click and drag it now, these will get more yellow, or there'll be more yellow particles on the left, and there'll be more blue particles on the right because it's mapped to the world. And if I was to say duplicate this emitter and just take one to the left, like that, and the other one to the right, that's even more obvious. Now you can see the full gradient, or pretty much the full gradient. There we go. And just come back to angular and select the particle node again. Now, with angular, beneath that you can see there's a gradient map offset option. So watch what happens over here when I drag that value. See if we can rotate that. And this gives you a little more control over where the gradients map to your emitter. Let's change it to linear. And you can see that's already moved there. So if I just adjust that a bit more, that's really clear. And linear also has a gradient angle option. So if I just adjust that, you can see we can rotate that. So in a nutshell, what this all means is that similar to how 3D mapping works in a 3D application, you can now map your particles to your gradients, giving you more control and enabling you to create what you envision. And those are the basics of the new gradient mapping feature inside of Particle Illusion. To learn more or to download a free trial of Particle Illusion and Continuum, you can visit borisfx.com. But for now, this is John. See you in the next tutorial.